conversations with people, and yeah, it was awesome. So yes.
Isn't that the best, that connection, right? We always talk about that.
Exactly, exactly. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed when I put the little Facebook post out here, I had a little picture, a little screenshot of of this Ayurvedic instructor, and then on the thing it says about meditation being such an important thing. And what she was talking about was acne, that for acne, meditation is a huge thing that moderates, reduces the impacts of acne. And I think that's kind of tie into our show tonight. Would you agree?
Definitely it will. But I have a side comment on acne. You know, when you're a kid and all the adults tell you, "Oh, you'll grow out of it. Don't worry,"
Yes.
and then you're an adult and you find out it's a lie. That
Oh,
you, and it's like I think they do that just so we keep hope alive, right? So
I see. Yeah.
so we don't give up. I've never had a problem with it, but you know, some people really struggle with that.
Definitely.
It's like a big affliction, and it affects. We're so image conscious nowadays, right? Well, maybe always, but yeah, young people, it's a big issue, a
Definitely
big
is.
big business too. I mean, in terms of all the lotions and potions and things. So
Yeah. Exactly. And medications as well. Like I think Accutane, I believe, is a really common one that people take. And of course, every drug has some kind of side effects related to it, right? So yeah.
I know that one of the popular ones, and I was talking to some young people about it, is it's tetracycline. I think it's one of the salt. I forget what family tetracycline's from, but anyway, I was reading a thing about a doctor, and he's saying it's really harmful for kids. They prescribe it a lot to young people because it's sort of considered a light antibiotic, but it adheres to your bones, to calcium, so it actually turns your bones and your teeth yellow for long-term use, and it's
Wow.
it's a cumulative thing, so you don't notice it usually when you're on the medication, but you know, some years later, like if you break a bone or something, there's a yellow residue to it, and your teeth actually will start to discolor from it.
Hmm.
So
Wow. Interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
stuff. So tonight, yeah, we're talking about an interesting development, and it's not that old. You know, it's well, old is relative, but it's the integration of non. This is the wording on this is interesting, and I have to share you. Let's just do a quick piece of nomenclature, I guess, because it really blew me away when I was looking at the different types of topics for tonight's show, because the language is completely different than what I thought.
Hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
So what do you think of when you think of traditional medicine?
Well, okay. Depends where we're talking about traditional. It's traditional today is you go see the doctor and in 4 minutes you got a script and you walk out the door and go fill the prescription. That's traditional today.
Yeah.
But traditional back in the day was, oh, here, try these herbs and blah, 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 and do these, do these rituals and sometimes even just vocalize, connect with others. Those were kind of the more natural healing type approach traditionally like 100 years ago, right? And everybody knew that the the crazy old woman would knew where the herbs were that you needed to take in order to heal yourself, right? So I think that was traditional 100 years ago. Today traditional is, here's the script, take this.
Well, you're as always, you're right, and I was wrong when I looked at it because I had to reread the paragraph a couple of times, and I'll read it to you, and you maybe understand why. So
Okay.
this is a definition of the three components of uh, what we're talking about tonight. The first one is complementary medicine or
Okay.
therapy, and
Okay.
that's additional methods that are used along with traditional medical approaches. And okay, I thought, okay, so he's talking about he, she, it, they are talking about herbs, you know, like we were just talking about. No, the list is medications, immunology, chemotherapy, radiation surgery, radiation, comma surgery, et cetera, et cetera. It complements these traditional medical approaches, which for me, those are modern and not traditional. That's where my
Yeah.
brain. But
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
hit
Yeah.
you hit it right on the head. tradition in terms of what we do now, where I sort of gave it tradition, meaning what we did in the, like, what was common before now. But you're correct. So when the literature talks about traditional medicine, generally they're talking about what I call modern Western medicine. Do you think we
Okay.
can do that tonight to sort of make sense of it that way?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, as long as we have a point of reference, right? And
Sure.
then alternative medicine uh, is an approach that's used in place of traditional medical approaches, in this case, meaning modern Western medicine. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so the big thing is that complementary is used along with, alternative is used instead of, and integrative medicine um, really picks up on the things we've been talking about for the last 3 or 4 shows, and that's the viewer Kay sent in the response to Dr. Chestnut, and then we talked about that, and then we talked about another development of that. We talked about the World Health Symposium.
Organization.
Yeah. No, the video that we watched, right, dealing with Roundup and its effect
Oh, yeah,
on.
yeah. Dr. Zach Bush and
Yes,
the diabetes epidemic. Yes.
thank you, Al. You're so good with names. Anyways, it's really cool. I wish I'm good with faces, not so much with names. Anyway, so integrated medicine considers the entire health, and it goes back to that social, biological, psychological model of the total being. So it's not a limiting therapeutic technique like alternative would be, where it's sort of one or the other. And it considers the specific disease or the organism, but not in a general way, in a very specific way, right?
Okay.
And focus on mental, emotional, functional, spiritual, social, and community aspects of your health. So right in line with what we were talking about the last few shows.
Yes.
So where that brings us to is the idea that those 3 types or modalities are what's in play today, right? Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Those 3 components: traditional medicine, alternatives, complementary, or integrative, right? And
Yeah.
so the diagnostic process that's traditionally taught, or in modern history is taught, is and you probably remember the name of the book or the process, right? It's sort of an if then this, if then this. You know what I mean? It goes to the symptoms, and then if this system is present, you look for this, and if this one is present, you look for that. If it's not present, you look over here. And so it's a very methodical, step-by-step approach to diagnosis
Hmm.
based on test results, based on observation, based on empirical evidence, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you've probably seen the contradiction there is that when you're talking about whole body or whole health or whole person, the scientific or the provable becomes less tangible. There's a lot of interpretation that has to go on, right?
Hmm.
Right. So because we don't have a lot of tests to test like our social situation, we have questionnaires, and then we get into a discussion of, is that, are you responding how you feel? Are you responding to how you think you should respond? All those kinds of questions. Where we are in 2023 is there.
2024, Scott. We've
All right.
skipped forward a little bit, brother. Just to keep you on track here. So
Well, the reason I said 2023 is because when I did my research, of course, there was like one source from 2024 that was actually written in 2023.
makes sense.
Really?
Yes.
So, yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Again, wow, what a day. I'm going to stay home. I'm not going to walk under a ladder. I will be avoiding black cats. You
Oh.
name it. I'm going to go right to bed, pull a big blanket over my head.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah. So what's happening is that we're spending more time, resources, intellect on developing ways to articulate, to test, to to develop scientific, and I'm avoiding using specific words here, to develop scientific ways to analyze emotion, social, cultural situations. And that progression has made medicine as an industry or a profession more open to integrative types of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Because the concern historically has been fact versus, opinion or mythology or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But we find ourselves in recent years where science is beginning to develop ways like a lot of cell diagnosis. We talked about before how we've learned more. Um, Somebody's doing donuts out in front of my house.
Oh,
We've learned how to better analyze the transmission of information between cells, the bilateral nature of transmission between gut and brain, and to monitor those things and the responses that they have.
mm-hmm.
So this is kind of a long-winded explanation to get to the discussion, but that has caused some schools and universities to start teaching integrative therapy or medicine to medical students in
Mm-hmm.
traditional Western medicine programs, which is a huge development.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
An example of that is when I was in the US, I was staying with a friend in Georgia, and chiropractors were not recognized as doctors. They
No.
were considered quacks.
Yeah.
And the mainstream doctors, MDs, were lobbying against them getting certified to call themselves doctors and to practice chiropractic medicine. Right.
Yes, definitely so. Yeah.
And that wasn't that long ago. You probably know better than I do.
No, you're right. It wasn't that long ago, and I don't know if you, I interviewed a chiropractor a while back. I don't know, but probably about a year ago. But it
Mhm.
was really interesting in the whole chiropractic, doctor of chiropractic manual kind of a thing. He showed me right in there where their job, as per this school, anyways, was to create alignment within the body so that the source, the energy that comes from our creator or the source that gives us our heartbeat and the miracle of breath could be could easily enter and heal your body, kind of a thing, so that you,
Wow.
like an antenna, you would tune the antenna so it could pick up that signal, right? It
Mhm.
was beautiful, right? And it was all about, basically getting that back into balance so that you can receive that signal so that your body works to its optimum, and then disease doesn't show up, and then you move freely and all those kind of things. It was quite fascinating. Yeah.
Well, and as you were talking about that, that's a very the idea behind it is not recent, but the acceptance is quite recent, and the argument has always been prove it, right?
Hmm.
Like, okay, so you say it works. You've got 20 people or 100 people, 1,000 people that says, oh yes, this works, but prove it. If it's not repeatable, if it's not repeatable by someone with no connection to you in a faraway place, etc., then it's not scientific proof that there's any connection between what you're doing and the result,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But as I said, we're seeing a change in that. And I think it's extremely progressive.
Mm.
And your Vedic medicine is an example that kept coming up. That's seeing a surge in Western medical practices combined in the main treatment plan for patients
Mm.
here in the West, in sort of the bastion of traditional scientific based medicine.
Yes. And for our viewers, I think it was what, 2 weeks ago, Scott, we had quite a deep dive into Ayurvedic medicine,
Yeah.
and, like, it's fascinating. I'm in all the way. I've done a lot of research on it. I'm still doing research on it, but I think there's so much value, and almost everything there is free. It's just, like, small changes in your practice and in how your daily practice and rituals are, kind of a thing, and the amazing health benefits, and mental health and physical health that you can garner from following some Ayurvedic principles, which have been around for like 5,000 years. It's not new, so
Mhm.
it's not traditional, but it is certainly has a history of having really good benefits for people who follow and get their balance right with their doshas. And there's three different doshas, right? So Pitta, Kapha, and Vata. Pitta, Kapha, and Vata. Those are the three doshas. Okay, sorry to interject. Carry on, Scott.
No, I was just you're and Vedic medicine. I always worry I'm pronouncing that wrong, and I apologize if I do. I sort of say it quickly and mumble through it to do my best. But the things that are being considered more mainstream and compatible with traditional treatments, massage, reflexology, chiropractic, osteopathic manipulation, cupping is getting bigger again. Meditation, you were talking about that,
Mm,
and it's being acne was one that didn't come up, but a lot of other ailments are including meditation to get that whole body sort of tuning that you were talking about. Relaxation and deep breathing, yoga, landscape therapy. Have you ever heard of landscape therapy?
no, I have not. Tell me more.
Yeah, I thought this was, I had to go look actually. I could have just said, oh, I know what that is, but I didn't. I looked and it was really interesting. And what they do is they don't take you wandering through a garden, although that sounded good to me too, is they darken a room and they show you slides or video of landscapes
Mm,
or landscape art.
mm.
And it's sort of a combination of art therapy. um, I thought going out into nature where you would also get the smell and the texture. I know you love going out and feeling the grass beneath your toes. I would think that would be a better way to do landscape therapy, but what do
Well,
I
it's probably that just a different term because they call it nature bathing, that like you go out in a forest or you go out where there's, nature, grass and green stuff growing, kind of a thing, and just kind of, feel the sun on your face and have that experience. And that is also a very healing thing, right? So, yeah.
That's a great point now, because one of the things I found in this is a lot of these things have been sort of adapted to a clinical or a hospital setting to make them more integratable with
Yeah.
traditional medicine. I've been on IV, I've had breathing tubes, all of that kind of stuff, and you're not going for a wandering anywhere.
No,
You're
no.
not even getting out of bed. But the landscape therapy, as it was presented, you could do almost in any condition.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
know you, what was that great book about the older gentleman and they played music and his response, he had dementia or Alzheimer's.
Oh, yeah, that was fascinating. It wasn't actually a book, it was a
Video.
video on YouTube or Facebook, and basically what it was this gentleman had visited seniors homes where people had severe dementia. And what he did is he talked to like if it was Gus, and Gus was 95 years old and was, slumped over in a chair and, non-responsive. And then he talked to Gus's daughter, and Gus's daughter would say, he said, "What kind of music did your father listen to?" And he was a young man, right? And then she would give him kind of a playlist. He'd put the playlist on, and he just kind of stick the headphones on this old gent, kind of a thing. And like within minutes he's like receptive and moving and like trying to vocalize and just like, engage. It's just incredible, incredible, incredible. And basically it's kind of where music and singing especially has kind of a different way that they get stored in our brains, right? It's more, there's emotions that get evoked. There's that where we were when we heard that song and who we were with. Maybe we were holding hands with Mary Lou or whatever the situation was. And this is a memory that, evokes such pleasure and joy in our lives, kind of a thing. And
Mhm.
then it would just like restore people amazingly, right? I know that there's some people will go and just sing songs in old folks home to, to their benefit. They enjoy doing it, but also to the benefit of the patrons, that it makes them relive. It doesn't make them, it invites them to relive, better times in their lives, and really restores a lot of great memories, right? So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and it's we're seeing more of those things. We talked about some of these before: VR fitness, corporate wellness programs, all of that kind of stuff. Hospitals and clinics are integrating them more. Research is getting much bigger, and it's being endorsed and funded by larger, more mainstream organizations. It's at one time, legitimate organizations wouldn't touch these types of medicine for fear of being, thought to be frivolous or wasting their money, or snake oil, if you will. And that's changing. Larger groups, larger corporations are starting to endorse and supply research funding for these things, which is amazing considering, as you said, there's almost no money to be made from it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's usually research is funded by a company that wants to make money. And here's the results we're looking for, Nick, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, right? And, here's our $500,000 for you to do this research grant. But this is the result we're looking for. And that kind of a thing, as opposed to just trying these more holistic, natural type of methods, and to see the value that they bring to the patient, right? So yeah, I think it's very refreshing. I think it's very positive. So yeah.
In a field like we're in, working with employee benefits and people that are looking for either ways to maximize their health or get a condition treated, hearing that the system is opening up to alternatives is really exciting. And as an individual who has an open mind, generally, it's quite, as you said, refreshing, but it's also relieving, because it's always worried me that, the person responsible for my health is following a script and is closed off to listening or considering alternatives,
Yes.
right? Your life's
Yeah.
on the line. Of course, you want the best you can get, but you also want the person to consider your individual situation and your wishes for treatment and care and those types of things. I had some examples here that I thought might interest you, and you probably know this one. This is from the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. Do you know those guys?
Can't say I do.
They're big. They're online. You can have a look. And they
Okay.
have a really interesting article on genomics and Ayurveda medicine.
Hmm.
Have you caught that? And that's integrating gene science with Ayurvedic medicine
Hmm.
treatment, and it's really come up with some interesting results. And the Ayurvedic Medical Association was exploring how Ayurvedic treatments can be tailored to each individual's genetic profiles in cooperation with traditional gene therapy and an assessment.
Hmm. Hmm.
That blew me away. That's like, those two are pretty far apart, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you wouldn't even think they'd be in the same conversation, right? But to put them together as a treatment modality for somebody, that's amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. And
Yeah.
again, this is moving into the mainstream. If you want to look that up, National Ayurvedic Medical Association, it's online. This one is kind of cool. See, it goes better in my mind together. Seems like a more rational jump. Acupuncture and biofeedback. You've had acupuncture, right?
I have. Yes.
Yeah. And but and we talked about it. I can't remember if we were live or not, but both of us have had the acupuncture where it's connected to electrical stimulus, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're now looking at it in connection to biofeedback in treatment of chronic pain. So
Mhm.
they're trying to establish evidence-based complementary and alternative medicine by using accepted measurements like biofeedback to direct and, in a way, prove that acupuncture has an effect on the human body, and it can be measured by scientific processes, and it is possible to use this scientifically in conjunction with other treatments.
Okay, now biofeedback, and just so I'm clear, if I recall the term correctly, if I'd actually done it, if I'm remembering it right, is where you have probes on your head
Yep.
to kind of measure your brain waves, what brain wave you're functioning at, right? And even like acupuncture aside, even just by changing your breathing patterns
Mhm.
or by going meditating, you can change your brain waves, right? Like, you can control that to a large degree, right? Whether you're alpha, delta, beta, whatever the brainwave is. It's fascinating stuff. Yeah.
Well, it is, and biofeedback is traditionally the brain, but that's moving them into other modalities of monitoring our physical systems using modern science under the treatment of acupuncture to more, I don't want to say that's a judgment. So I don't mean more accurately, but more acceptably to Western scientists, the connection, right? Like
Right.
a traditional therapist in acupuncture, I think they probably have a very good sense of what does what. So I misspoke. But by providing scientific proof in a way that's acceptable to Western scientific understanding, then it's much easier to approach hospitals, doctors, and most importantly, the schools that are training medical practitioners and doctors to explore it and consider it as a treatment option in a complementary way or an interactive way with other types of treatment.
Hey, Scott, I just wanted to remind you, we're going to try and keep this to 30 minutes. Do you remember why?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I thought we could.
And you also, did you have some slides that you wanted to share? You sent me an email with some slides. Did you want to share any of those?
Well, I think we can just post them under
Okay.
tonight's show, and then
Sure.
people can,
Okay. Sounds good.
because as you're reminding me, we have like less than 3 minutes, and I have
Yes.
pages of notes. But the reason, do you want to tell everyone the reason why we're shooting for 30
Sure.
minutes here?
For our
Yeah.
viewers' interest, besides being on Jess TV and having, basking in the love of Jessie Parmar at Jess TV,
Woo!
we are gonna produce we're gonna make these episodes into a podcast. And so podcast by our friend Alex, he tells us they gotta be 30 minutes. Don't go over 30 minutes. So we're gonna try and keep us to 30 minutes, which is a challenge because we like to talk. And then we're going to publish these in a podcast, and then every week it's going to be here, but it's also going to be in a podcast is what the plan is. So we hope to just share our conversation with a bigger audience, and I think it'll be a lot of fun. Let's see if we get more engagement, more people interested, more people sharing. Like remember when we did our thing on Dr. Chestnut, and then we had a viewer share with us, "Hey,
Yeah.
here's a similar model that predates Dr. Chestnut," and it was very, very similar in terms of its more holistic approach. Yes.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you have more things on the agenda, Scott. I'll leave it back to you to try to keep us in while we're a minute and 5 seconds away.
It's impossible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a shout out to Alex. What's Alex's name or company?
Oh my goodness.
We're just starting
I
to
got
work with him.
I got to look up
When
his last name.
Alex has been great. If you're interested in doing a podcast, you have an idea, talk to him. Al's going to pull up his name in a second. And to Jessie, our Jess TV master. He's always got time to listen to an idea. If you've got an idea for a show, get in touch with him. You can just email him right off his Facebook page. He's a great guy to work with. And
Okay, so yeah, so Alex's last name is Hockhausen, Hochhausen, and his company is Astronomic Audio. Anyways, and he started this just out as just like a fun thing for him, kind of a thing. And now he's created this business and he has all this talent that's working with him, and they make podcasts and they, distribute it out to all the different podcast type folks. And he told us about where podcasts have to be 30 minutes because they're usually related to a drive, right? So, your drive to work or your drive home kind of a thing. And that's kind of where you had to keep them, which my talking now we're over 30 minutes now.
And
Anything
I
under,
can't just end there. I have to say that's really cool is we're just talking about integrative medicine, but this is integrative communication, right? Like there's you and I who like to discuss things, and we've got Jess doing the whole TV thing. He was awarded from the Crown for his work in this area, right? He received I forget what it was called.
yes,
Yes.
Jesse Parmar is a beautiful human being. Yeah, he's awesome. So,
And
yeah,
then we're working with Alex on podcast. That's integrative communication. The
that
world's
is
getting more connected.
it.
Yay!
Good news. All right, Brother Scott, take us on home.
Okay, for those of you driving home, it's been our pleasure for our first podcast. Allan Friesen, the acapellas, my dear friend, and myself, Scott Sweetman. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you next week, hopefully within the 30-minute time limit, right here on Jess TV and our podcast, which is yet to be named.
Excellent. Okay, get him, Matson.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.